They really just did us like that? They really left us on that cliffhanger? Are you for real? Nah, what the heck, man? Nah. Because if you guys didn't know, this is it. This is it for this season. They've broken this show up into two cores. It's 22 episodes, but they've broken it up into two cores, and they're doing 11 and 11. So this is it for right now. This is our cliffhanger. And I'm like, no, not like this. This episode was crazy from start to finish. Literally was popping off the entire episode. It was insane. Let's just get straight into it. This was crazy. Let's talk about Danmachi Season 4, Episode 11 today, because this shit was wild. So our episode begins today where our last one left off with Bell just getting absolutely eviscerated. Just on the floor, down for the count, guys. He's out of it. He's done. Ryu rushes over to him and checks him out. Checks his pulse, and he's alive, actually, because of the scarf. The MVP scarf, man. That scarf is the real MVP of this episode. We'll get more into that later, but that scarf, holy crap, was that scarf essential. He didn't break his neck because of it. So noticing that he's alive, Ryu puts a tourniquet on his arm to stop the bleeding, because he'll bleed out if she doesn't, and she proceeds to try to heal him as best as she can. And it doesn't do too much, but it's just enough to where he's not completely dying right now. And the whole time she's healing him, I can't help but think to myself, like, how nice of the monster to let them have this tender, loving moment right here, where she can heal him. And then I remembered, oh yeah, Boris' group. That's right, as they're just getting eviscerated in the background. And it's as graphic as ever. The monster literally impales this one woman and explodes her everywhere. And I'm like, yeah, that's right, this is a pretty hopeless situation. Now, Ryu heals Bell as best as she can, but in this situation, she can't really hang back. Boris' group is getting annihilated. So she actually does end up jumping into the fight to, I believe it's, the Annihilation? No, it's the Juggernaut. She's fighting against the Juggernaut. She actually does jump in and fight against the Juggernaut in this situation, because out of everyone here, she's the most likely one that can put up a fight. And she's at least holding her own somewhat, but then she starts talking to herself like, this is too much. This thing is too strong. Fighting against this monstrosity head on is impossible. As she starts recalling the fact that it was the same back then, when all my friends were killed. And eventually the monster does trip her up and slams her into the wall, actually breaking her wooden sword. And it's here that Boris' group, who've been charging magic this whole time, decide, alright, this is our only chance. Let's take it right now. And they shoot a huge magical blast at the Juggernaut. And I'm thinking to myself, like, did they not literally watch what Bell did? Do they not know what's going to happen? I literally was saying that to the screen as I was watching it. Like, do you guys not know what's going to happen? Like, but they apparently don't, as Ryu even screams at them to not do it. But they do, and the creature bounces it all back. And Boris is actually still standing after it, but his entire rest of his party is completely wiped out. It's gruesome. Like, the one female adventurer has half her body blown off. The other guy's just smashed against the wall. It's brutal. It's just Boris now. And it's here we see Boris actually start begging, like, please don't kill me, as the creature's about to take him out. But Ryu saves him at the last second, telling him, get out of here already, run for it. She ends up saving him from a hit, and she gets a humongous gash in her shoulder. She's very injured right here. And in the process, she gets one of her legs just completely just shattered. Like, barely hanging on, kind of shattered. Ryu is down for the count at this point. She's done. As she starts thinking to herself, like, I failed. I couldn't put a stop to that bastard Jura and his plan. This is where I'm going to meet a miserable end. As she apologizes to everyone from the benevolent mistress that was there for her. They gave, like, you gave me such a nice place to call home, but I was never able to repay you for it. At least I can be with Elise and the others now. I'll be freed from the sin of killing them at long last. Now, during this altercation, during this fight, Bell actually got swept into the water. So his body's actually sinking into the water. And it's here that Mara comes and finds him. And I'll be real, guys. The second his arm went into the water last week in the episode, I knew for a fact she was going to come and save him. I knew it. It was kind of obvious, to be honest. I knew she'd have to. She literally comes with his arm. She makes herself bleed to get her blood out. And she actually reattaches his arm, which I think is a little bit of a cop-out, to be honest. I don't exactly love it, but it does make sense. It makes total sense from what they established earlier in the season. I don't love it, but I can accept it. Now, that was enough to heal his arm. It's not enough to heal himself. So she actually has to cut herself multiple times on her arms and try to bring him back by embracing him. And eventually he does open his eyes because she's able to heal him as he thanks her and embraces her, which I would too. She just saved his life. I'd be giving her a huge ass hug as he floats back to the surface to go fight the creature one more time. As he stands there confronting the monster, he actually takes the scarf off and wraps it around his arm and starts fighting the monster. And this scarf is like the most broken thing I've ever seen, man. Like, he can use it as a shield, apparently. Like, what? This scarf is the real MVP of this episode. Bell would have been dead like 5 times over if not for this scarf, man. Now, as Bell's having his intense battle with the creature, he realizes that this thing doesn't have a magic stone. So he really doesn't know a way to take it out. And I gotta be real, Bell is putting up a hell of a fight. Thanks to Welf and Cassandra, he can block it with the Goliath scarf, and he has the Hestia knife in his other hand. This is by far his best chance to try to fight this creature. And he's putting on a hell of a performance, I have to admit. But this creature is crafty. It's trying everything it can to stop Bell, even throwing crystals at him. And Bell even comments that, I've stopped it from jumping around, but it's still so fast. And Bell realizes that he needs to keep it in this area, otherwise it's going to go after the rest of Team Hestia. And he has to stop that no matter what, because it will completely wipe them out. As his fierce fight with the creature continues, and even Ryu is looking on shocked, like, Mr. Cornell, I can hardly believe how strong you've gotten. Because Bell looks like a completely different person right now. Just put a picture of Bell from season 1 and put a picture of Bell now. They are complete opposite people. It's wild, the transformation he's went through over the course of the series, man. Development and a half. As Bell thinks to himself, I know that he would never back away from a fight. And that she would keep swinging her sword until the very end. As he starts readying a huge blast of magic, and Ryu's screaming at him like, don't do it! It's just gonna reflect it back at you! And the creature does just that, reflects it back at him, but this is all a part of Bell's strategy, as he's absorbing it with the Hestia knife, or the goddess knife again. And he looks pretty freaking cool, I'll be honest. Yet again, he uses the MVP scarf to wrap himself around the creature, pull himself closer, and unleashes his strongest attack for the second time in this season, Argo Vesta. And he lands a decisive hit against this creature. Now, Bell in this situation is exhausted after this attack. He used most of his energy in this one attack. And while he did land a really good hit against the creature, he didn't let it charge enough, so the creature actually gets right back up. And it's in this moment that Jura seizes his moment and tries to control this creature with the magic item. He wraps his the control thing around its neck, and for a second there, it looks like he's controlled it. But the creature easily breaks out of it and kills Jura. And I'm thinking to myself, like, finally, get him out of here. Get him out of here. Good riddance. cuts his body clean in half, and I'm glad to see it. As the creature easily brushes off the mind control. But we get revealed that the Labantin is actually still alive that they fought before. They didn't kill it. And it came to the call of Jura. And now they have two creatures they have to fight. As the Labantin charges at Ryu and Bell goes to rescue her, and they both get eaten in the process and dragged down into the dungeon. And the Juggernaut actually jumps down there with them, leaving only Mara there to watch in horror in this situation. And it's here we transition back to Team Hestia, who are still on the 25th floor, because Cassandra has made good on her promise that she's not going to let any of them go to the 27th floor no matter what. As long as we stay on the 25th floor, then we should be able to avoid the disaster. But it's here that another disaster strikes. The dungeon starts shaking like crazy. Everything around them is falling apart, being destroyed, because the floor boss is spawning. Now, Lily said that it shouldn't spawn for another 2 weeks. But in this situation, the dungeon's out of whack. Aisha even says that we're going to have to throw common sense out the window at this point. Think about that explosion earlier, plus the weird noise that sounded like a scream. This isn't the same dungeon that we're used to anymore. And it's here we get the appearance of the Monster Rex. And this thing starts going up the waterfall. That's terrifying. It starts rushing up the waterfall to come get them, as all they can do is run. And it's here as everyone gets wiped away by a giant wave. We get the appearance of the Monster Rex. And this thing is terrifying. It looks like a two-headed dragon, actually. And it's bearing down on Team Hestia. I have absolutely no clue at all how they're going to fight this thing. Even with Harahime's level boost, I don't see how they're beating this thing. As Cassandra looks on in horror and says, "Oh no, it wasn't over yet. The banquet of tragedy is still ongoing." And it's here after the end song that we get the Labantin crashing down into one of the lower floors. As Bell is literally able to bust out of this thing's gut with a firebolt as he drags Ryu out of it. And they are both in terrible shape. They are both so fucked up in this situation. Like, Bell looks half dead right here, and so does Ryu. As Bell takes notice of his surroundings and said, "What is that sound? I've never heard growling like this before." As he recalls something that Aina told him earlier. That depending on the floor, the color of the terrain and the walls are very different. Everything on the 37th floor is milky white, which is why some people have come to call it the White Palace. It's a place where even first-class adventurers run the risk of dying from something. Good thing you won't have to experience that anytime soon, Bell, right? Ha 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 ha! As Bell realizes that they're in the White Palace, and that they're in the lower floors. And that's how our episode ends. And what a cliffhanger! They really left us on a cliffhanger like this, guys. Now, I'll be honest. I knew a little bit, a very little bit, about what was going to happen. All I knew was the fact that Bell and Ryu get separated from everyone at some point. I knew that was going to happen. I didn't know the situation, though, and what surrounded it. They're fucked. How are they getting out of here? Who's gonna come save them? Ain't no way Bell's just gonna magically get healed again, right? Nah. What a cliffhanger, man. This is like really dire straits that they're in. Man, Danmachi, man. Who'd have thought it'd get so good? Like, I've always liked the series, but as it's progressed farther and farther, it literally just gets better and better. And I love it. I love to see this series just continue to impress me with what I've seen. Because this episode was, from start to finish, action-packed. And just really cool, honestly. So you guys let me know what you thought of it down below. because we're gonna have to wait a while for the second part, unfortunately. But now I'm very much looking forward to it. So again, you guys let me know how much you're looking forward to the second part too, because I'm looking forward to it a lot. But that'll be it for today's episode, guys. And I suppose Danmachi for a little bit, you know? You know we're coming back and doing the second half, though, so don't worry about that. But until then, guys, I hope you have a great day, week, month, and year. And I pray y'all don't ever end up in a situation like Bell and Ryu are in right now, because you're fucked. But until then, guys, I'll see ya. You have a great day.